My name is Jasmine Morrison, and I'm 29 years old. I've spent the last 8 years of my life sitting in the same chairback corner of the Morrison Industries boardroom, where the air smells like polished mahogany ambition and faint disappointment. The conference room felt smaller that morning, or maybe it was me shrinking a little more as my father stood at the head of the table, booming his voice across 23 shareholders like a conductor orchestrating control. "We're looking for committed partners," he said, his tone edged with that practiced authority that had built the company from a small tool manufacturer into a billion-dollar enterprise. "People who understand what it takes to build something real." He didn't look at me once. He never does. I sat still, hands folded over my notepad like a quiet shadow. Across the table, my brother Victor, the eldest, the heir apparent, leaned back in his chair, the faintest smirk playing on his lips. His navy suit looked custom-tailored for success. Beside him, my sister Marina, the marketing darling, clicked her pen with the rhythm of impatience. I watched them the way I've always watched them, from a distance too close to ignore, yet too far to matter. "The real question," Victor said smoothly, "is whether we have the capital depth to support this expansion without diluting our investor base. We'll need partners who can commit to the 200 million threshold." Marina added, her tone as bright and sharp as a champagne glass. They sounded rehearsed, their lines memorized from years of being praised at family dinners, while I was the background extra whose name no one remembered. Dad nodded approvingly. "Exactly. That's why we need serious money. Real partners." His eyes swept the room, pausing deliberately over every face except mine. I'd heard this scene 100 times before, literally. For 8 years, I'd been sitting right there quietly taking notes in a seat no one thought I'd earned. When the meeting ended, the shareholders rose in a low hum of conversation. I started to stand, but my father's voice cut through the noise. "Jasmine, stay a minute." My stomach tightened, though I kept my face calm. I'd mastered that expression, a soft, polite smile that hid the sting. The others filtered out, and soon it was just the three of them, Dad, Victor, and Marina. The family tribunal. Dad approached first. "Sweetheart, we need to talk about your attendance at these meetings." "I'm a shareholder," I said quietly. "I have every right to be here." Victor's laugh was soft but condescending. "You own, what, a few hundred shares, maybe 1,000? These meetings are about expansion, Jasmine, not logistics." Marina sipped from her coffee cup, eyes bright with false sympathy. "Dad's trying to be kind, Jazz. But honestly, it's embarrassing. These meetings are for people who actually contribute." I forced a small smile. "I do contribute." By moving boxes, Victor shot back, incredulous. "Come on, you work in the warehouse." Dad sighed, as if their cruelty was simply practicality. "This is serious business, Jasmine. $200 million. That's more than you'll make in your entire lifetime." There it was, the sentence they loved the most. The one that always landed like a slap disguised as concern. "And if I wanted to be considered for a partnership position," I asked softly. Marina laughed outright this time. "A partnership requires a $50 million minimum commitment. You'd need capital experience, a proven record. You have none of those things." Victor nodded. "The warehouse suits you better. Reliable work, predictable hours. Leave the strategy to the adults." They said it so easily, like they'd rehearsed it for years. I met each of their gazes one by one. Dad, the patriarch, who never learned to see beyond titles. Victor, the golden boy, who'd inherited confidence without earning it. Marina, the perfectionist, desperate for approval, even if it meant crushing me. "I understand," I said calmly. "You want serious investors, people with actual skin in the game." Finally, Dad said, relieved, "Now you're thinking clearly." I reached for my phone. My thumb hovered over the glass as the light from the chandelier reflected off the screen. "Just making a note," I said when Victor frowned at me, "about what qualifies someone as serious." He smirked. "Cute." Dad's voice softened slightly as though I were fragile. "Jasmine, there's no shame in honest work. You're steady, responsible. Not everyone is meant to run companies." He patted my arm, gentle, patronizing final. I looked at his hand, then at his face. "You've always made that clear," I said. They turned away, conversation already shifting to dinner reservations and board strategies. I could have left then, could have let the words dissolve into the usual ache in my chest. But something in me, some quiet, long suffocated ember, finally caught flame. Because I knew something they didn't. I knew that when Dad talked about serious investors, he was talking about me. The girl who stacked boxes on the warehouse floor had been quietly investing since she was 21. the same unserious daughter, now controlled more than 40% of Morrison Industries through 3 holding entities, Delta Holdings, Epsilon Ventures, and Zeta Capital Partners, each registered under her own name. I'd built them from nothing, using the profits from a tech startup I'd sold in college, reinvesting every cent while pretending to live paycheck to paycheck. 8 years of silence. 8 years of saving their company every time their serious investors wavered. 8 years of being invisible. Not everyone is meant to run companies, Dad had said. My thumb pressed down and the email draft I'd been preparing all week opened automatically. To Danielle Chin, Sterling Capital Management. Subject, liquidation authorization message. Danielle, initiate full liquidation of all Morrison Industries positions under Delta, Epsilon, and Zeta. Execute immediately. Authorization code JM4411. The cursor blinked, waiting. I looked up one last time. They were still talking, laughing, planning their empire built on my silent capital. I smiled, a calm, knowing smile that no one noticed. Then I pressed send. The email vanished into the digital ether, and with it, 8 years of silence ended. The warehouse girl had just pulled the foundation out from under the empire that never saw her. The moment I hit send, something inside me shifted. Not triumph, not revenge, just silence. The kind that comes after a storm when the air still hums, but the world hasn't yet realized the damage. I walked out of the conference room and into the hallway of Morrison Industries, the company that bore my name but never my reflection. Every framed photograph on those walls showed my father shaking hands with dignitaries, my brother cutting ribbons, my sister on magazine covers. Not a single picture of me. You'd never know the invisible daughter existed, but maybe that was the point. As I passed the warehouse elevator, I caught my reflection in the chrome door hair, tied in a loose bun, the same navy blazer I'd worn for years. Ordinary, forgettable, exactly how they liked me to be. My phone buzzed. Danielle Chin, Sterling Capital Management. Danielle, on speaker Jasmine. Just to confirm full liquidation of all Morrison Industries positions. Total value 23.7 million. Immediate execution. Me. Yes. Proceed, Danielle. You understand this will trigger automatic SEC notifications within 30 minutes. Me. Good. It's time they start noticing things. Her voice softened. Are you sure you want to do this? I hesitated. Danielle had been with me since the beginning, 8 years of late-night strategy calls, whispers about hidden accounts, and long silences where I tried to convince myself that patience was loyalty. They told me today, I said quietly, that I don't belong here, that I'm embarrassing myself. Then maybe it's time, she said simply. The call ended. I stood there for a long moment, phone pressed to my chest, heart beating like something trying to escape. Flashback, 8 years earlier. I was 21. Still in the same warehouse uniform, gray polo shirt name tag that read J. Morrison. So no one realized I was the owner's daughter. I preferred it that way. Every night after my shift, I'd sit at a rusted desk in my small apartment laptop glowing against the dark. That's where Logisolve was born. A logistics optimization app I built to track real-time shipping routes more efficiently than my father's entire department. When the startup sold for $12 million, I didn't buy a car or a condo like Victor did with his first bonus. I built 3 shell companies instead: Delta Holdings, Epsilon Ventures, Zeta Capital Partners. Dad was desperate for investors during Morrison's Series C funding that year. He thought I didn't understand what that meant, so I quietly wired $8 million through Delta Holdings. Anonymous capital, no questions asked. He praised his mystery investor for saving the company. He never knew it was me. By 24, I'd launched my second venture, a predictive AI for supply chain management. Sold it for $43 million. Invested $70 million more into Morrison through Epsilon Ventures. 2 years later, during the 2020 supply chain crisis, I provided bridge financing through Zeta Capital to keep them from collapsing. Every time my family celebrated another Morrison miracle, I sat in the warehouse cafeteria eating reheated noodles, watching from a dusty television. No one thought to ask how the miracles kept happening. Back in the present, I walked past the main lobby where the glass walls reflected the afternoon light across polished floors. Victor was there laughing with a group of executives, radiant as always. He didn't even glance in my direction. I wondered what he'd say when the SEC filings hit the board inbox, when they learned that the mystery investor they'd been bragging about all these years was the sister they'd dismissed as background noise. I didn't want to destroy them. I just wanted them to see. Because beneath the calm exterior, the truth hurt. I'd spent half my life trying to earn a seat at a table that was already mine. I wasn't seeking power, I was begging for acknowledgement, and they still couldn't give me that. That evening, I sat in my small office near the warehouse, a converted storage room, where the hum of machinery vibrated through the walls, the same space where I'd secretly managed a $487 million portfolio between shipments and staff meetings. I opened my laptop. Sterling Capital's dashboard flickered to life. 3 accounts, all under pseudonyms tied to my initials. Delta Holdings, $78 million. Epsilon Ventures, $69 million. Zeta Capital Partners, $56.7 million. A soft chime sounded an email from Danielle. From Sterling Capital Management, subject transaction confirmation. Morrison Industries. Body liquidation initiated. SEC notification sent. Internal systems will reflect within 15 minutes. Stand by for update. 15 minutes. That's all it would take for my father's empire to start trembling. I closed my eyes. I could almost see the conference room again. His voice steady, Victor's arrogance, Marina's laughter. They'd think it was a technical glitch at first, then confusion, then panic. I wasn't doing it to punish them. I was doing it to end the illusion that I was the weak link, the burden, the afterthought. 8 years of silence had made me invisible. Now my silence would be louder than any scream. Another email came in. Danielle first notice, received by board registrar. Calls incoming within 10 minutes. Prepare for contact. I stared at the screen, heartbeat quickening. No turning back now. The warehouse lights flickered overhead as forklifts hummed in the distance. Outside my door, a young worker named Eliza peeked in. Hey, Jasmine, you staying late again? Yeah, I said, managing a smile. Just cleaning up a few things. You work harder than the execs upstairs, she laughed. If I were the boss, I'd make you CEO. I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat. If only she knew. Thanks, Eliza, I said softly. Maybe one day. When she left, I whispered to the empty room, but not here. My phone buzzed again. Danielle's final message for the night. System update complete. Internal notification sent to all major shareholders. Expect response within the hour. I looked up at the Morrison logo embossed on the office wall, a name that had always belonged to everyone but me. For the first time, it felt heavy, not proud heavy. Then I whispered the words I'd never dared to say aloud. You wanted serious investors, Dad. Now you're going to meet one. The hum of the warehouse continued steady, indifferent, as my phone began to light up with incoming calls from the boardroom above. By the time I reached the lobby, the air upstairs had changed. You could feel it like static before lightning. Phones were ringing. Voices carried down the marble staircase. The calm rhythm of Morrison Industries was cracking second by second. I didn't go to my office. I went to the balcony, overlooking the executive floor, where the glass walls revealed the boardroom beyond. From up there, I could see everything the same conference room where I'd sat quietly hours earlier. Now, through the frosted glass, silhouettes moved in sharp, frantic gestures. Someone was pointing at a tablet. Someone else was on the phone. And then the door burst open. Dad's voice carried out first. Everyone back inside emergency meeting. Now. The shareholders filed in like anxious schoolchildren. Faces pale murmurs, slicing the air. I stayed where I was, unseen, behind the glass rail, a ghost in my own story. Inside chaos unfolded. Victor slammed his phone on the table. This can't be right. It says Delta Holdings, Epsilon Ventures, and Zeta Capital. They've all withdrawn. Marina's voice trembled. That's over $200 million. Who the hell are they? Why didn't finance catch this? Dad's jaw tightened as he stared at his screen knuckles white around his phone. Call Sterling Capital Management, now. Put them on speaker. Someone dialed, the room filled with the sound of ringing, and then a calm voice answered. Sterling Capital Management, this is Danielle Chin speaking. Every muscle in my body froze. This was it. Dad, Ms. Chin. This is Henry Morrison, CEO of Morrison Industries. We've just received notice that 3 of our largest investors have liquidated their entire positions, Delta Holdings, Epsilon Ventures, and Zeta Capital Partners. We need an immediate explanation. Danielle coolly, yes, Mr. Morrison. I can confirm those liquidation orders are valid. Victor valid. Who's behind these funds? We need to speak with the owner directly. Danielle, I can pass along a message. However, she paused, letting the silence stretch every shareholder leaning forward. Danielle, my client is already present with you right now. The room fell utterly still. A pin could have shattered the silence. Dad's eyes darted from face to face. What are you talking about? He demanded. Who is your client? Danielle Jasmine Morrison. And just like that, every head in the room turned. I took a slow breath and stepped through the door. The soft click of my heels echoed through the tension. Every pair of eyes tracked me like I was an apparition. Hello, everyone, I said, voice steady. Sorry to interrupt. Victor's face drained of color. What did you? Dad's voice broke through, trembling. Jasmine, this isn't funny. No, I said, walking toward the long table. It's not. I set my laptop down, connected it to the projector, and within seconds, the big screen filled with a clean white dashboard. Sterling Capital's client portal. At the top, account holder, Jasmine R. Morrison. Total assets, under management, $487 in, $234.877. A gasp rippled across the room. Then the numbers scrolled, 3 entities listed neatly below. Delta Holdings, LLC, $78,000. $1,000. Epsilon Ventures, LP, $69,000. $1,000. Zeta Capital Partners, $56,700, $1,000. You said you needed serious investors, I said quietly. These are mine. Marina's voice came out as a whisper. This has to be a mistake. I opened a folder on screen. Each company's registration document appeared, one after another, all with my signature. I founded Delta 8 years ago, I continued, when Dad was raising Series C funding. Remember that anonymous investor who saved the company at the last minute? That was me. 2 years later, when COVID hit and we nearly went bankrupt, Epsilon Ventures provided bridge capital to cover supply chain losses. Also me. And when you acquired Peterson Manufacturing last year, Zeta Capital supplied the financing. I turned to them. You didn't ask where the money came from because it was easier to assume miracles had sponsors. Victor stumbled back a step, face pale. How could you possibly? Because while you were busy chasing promotions, I said evenly, I was building companies. Coding at night, investing at dawn. The warehouse floor was my cover, not my cage. Dad looked stunned, his authority gone replaced by disbelief. You've been our largest investor. For 8 years, I said softly, and I never asked for recognition. I just wanted to belong, but you made it clear that I don't. No one spoke. The sound of the projector fan filled the silence. On the screen, my transaction list flashed again. Each movement documented, each date correlating with a moment they'd been saved. It was all there, the proof of every quiet rescue, every unnoticed sacrifice. You called me unrealistic, I said, my voice trembling now. Told me to stay in the warehouse to be proud of my honest work. So I was. I worked. I built. And while you doubted me, I made sure this company didn't collapse. Victor stepped forward. If you cared that much, why hide it? Because I wanted to see if you'd ever value me without knowing my worth in numbers. My throat tightened as the words left me. You never did. Danielle's voice returned faintly from the speaker. Ms. Morrison, all liquidation orders are processing smoothly. The board notifications have been sent. SEC filings are public. You'll receive confirmation shortly. I met my father's eyes. He looked smaller somehow, his confidence cracked. You're liquidating everything, he asked, voice almost breaking. Yes. You'll destroy the company. No, I said quietly. You'll destroy it when you keep judging people by where they sit instead of what they do. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then my phone buzzed. Danielle, first tranche, cleared. 68 million withdrawn. The color drained from Victor's face. You can't do this, he whispered. I already have, I said. Dad's hand trembled as he reached out toward me. Jasmine, please let's talk privately. We can fix this. I looked at him, at the man who had once lifted me onto his shoulders at company picnics and told everyone, someday she'll run this place. Then years later, forgot to mean it. I tried to talk for 8 years, I said softly. You just never listened. The projector light flickered, and for the first time in my life, every person in that room saw me. Not as the quiet daughter, not as the warehouse worker, but as the woman who held their empire in the palm of her hand. And I wasn't invisible anymore. The silence in the boardroom was unbearable, the kind that feels alive, stretching, breathing, waiting for someone to break it. Every face around the table was frozen between disbelief and dread. Victor was the first to speak. This is insane, he snapped. You're making a mistake, Jasmine. Do you have any idea what you've just done? I met his eyes calm. For the first time, I said I do. Dad pressed a hand to his forehead, as if the weight of everything he'd built was suddenly too heavy. Sweetheart, please, sit down. We can sort this out. This isn't the way. The way, I repeated. You mean the way where I sit quietly while you decide who matters and who doesn't. Marina's voice cracked. We didn't mean to hurt you. You never said anything. Would it have mattered if I had? I asked. You already decided who I was supposed to be. Robert, the board chairman, cleared his throat, trying to reclaim order. Let's all take a breath. Ms. Morrison, Jasmine, surely we can negotiate a reversal of this liquidation before the markets open. I turned toward him, my tone polite but cold. Mr. Bennett, this isn't about negotiation. This is about recognition. For years, I poured millions into a company that mocked the person providing it. His mouth opened, then closed. If this company can't survive without my silent investment, I continued, then maybe it shouldn't survive as it is. Dad's chair scraped loudly as he stood. That's enough. His voice cracked halfway through the sentence. You're angry, I get it, but you're punishing hundreds of employees for our mistakes. No, I said quietly, I'm saving them from your leadership. He froze. You run a business where talent is ignored because it doesn't wear a designer suit, where good people are stuck in warehouses because they don't have the right last name. Marina looked down. I could see her mascara trembling on her lashes. That's not fair, she whispered. You're twisting things. Am I? I took a slow step closer. Do you remember 2 years ago when the warehouse proposed a new shipping system that would have saved millions? You shut it down because you said it's not the place of floor workers to think strategically. She didn't answer. That idea came from me, I added, under another name. Marina's lips parted. That was you, I nodded. And you called it naive. Dad rubbed his temple, his voice lower now. If you wanted a bigger role, Jasmine, you could have just asked. I did, I said. Not once, 10 times. You said I should focus on realistic goals. You meant small ones. His eyes fell to the table, and for the first time I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. Do you even know what realistic means to me? I asked softly. It means knowing your own family sees you as less than the janitor. It means smiling while they call it love. Danielle's voice returned through the speakerphone, crisp and steady. Ms. Morrison's second tranche cleared. $112 million remaining in process. The number hit the room like a detonator. Victor cursed under his breath. Dad, we can't let her do this. She's going to collapse the stock. You think I care about the stock, I said. I care about the people you step over to protect it. Dad raised his head again, eyes glassy. Then tell us what you want. We'll do it. You've made your point. I hesitated, because I hadn't expected that question, not from him. I turned to the board. Apologize, I said. They stared at me. To every employee who's been dismissed or ignored because of where they started, issue a company-wide memo acknowledging that contribution matters more than pedigree. Create a promotion system that doesn't require a family name to be seen. Dad nodded quickly. Done. We'll do it right away. And make sure it's not just a statement I added. Make it policy. Robert began writing notes, his hands shaking. We'll implement blind reviews for advancement. That's a good idea. It's not an idea, I said. It's overdue. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, this would end in peace. Dad's expression softened. His voice almost broke. I should have listened to you. I'm sorry. There it was, the apology I'd dreamt about for years. But it didn't feel the way I'd imagined. It wasn't enough. You're sorry because you're losing money, I said quietly. Not because you finally see me. He didn't deny it. He didn't have to. The projector light flickered against the glass, reflecting all of us. Me standing tall in the center, my family around me, smaller than they'd ever seemed. I felt both powerful and hollow, because no amount of wealth could undo what years of dismissal had done to my soul. Marina whispered, Jazz, please don't end it like this. I met her eyes, and for a second I almost faltered. Almost. Then my phone buzzed again. Danielle, third tranche cleared. 68 million remaining. The number blinked on the screen like a countdown. It's already ending, I said. I'm just watching it happen. Dad's shoulders slumped. Victor's jaw tightened. Marina began to cry silently. The empire was unraveling, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. I picked up my laptop. You wanted to know my strengths, I said. Now you've seen them, just not in the way you expected. And with that, I turned toward the door. Behind me, the sound of my father's voice cracked in a whisper. Jasmine, please. I didn't turn around. 8 years ago, I said you told me to stay in my lane. I'm finally taking your advice. Then I walked out, the echo of my heels slicing through the silence of everything they'd lost. The hallway outside the boardroom was colder than I remembered. Maybe because for the first time I wasn't walking through it as the ignored daughter. I was walking through it as the storm they never saw coming. Behind the glass doors, the muffled chaos continued. Raised voices, phones ringing, someone crying. The sound of a dynasty unraveling. I kept walking, the weight of my laptop heavy in my hand. But before I reached the elevator, I heard my name. Jasmine, wait. It was Victor. He jogged after me, his perfect composure fractured for the first time in his life. Marina and Dad followed close behind. "We can fix this," Victor said, breathless. "Just stop the liquidation. We'll make it right." I turned slowly. Make what right? 8 years of being dismissed, or the last hour of panic. Dad stepped forward, voice shaking. "Listen to me. The board's ready to offer you anything you want. Board seats, executive title, salary, options. You name it." "You don't understand," I said quietly. "I don't want a title. I wanted respect long before you realized I was rich enough to deserve it." Marina's mascara had smeared tears, leaving faint streaks on her cheeks. "Jazz, please. I said awful things, we all did. But we were wrong. You belong here." I almost smiled at the irony. "Now I do," I said, "because my bank account qualifies me." Victor ran a hand through his hair, exasperated. "You're being emotional." "No, Victor," I cut in. "I'm being logical. You taught me that logic means numbers. I'm just letting the numbers speak." Danielle's voice came softly through my phone speaker, cutting through the air like a quiet clock ticking. "Ms. Morrison, fourth tranche. Complete. $112 million cleared. Remaining balance $23.7 million. Dad visibly flinched. "Please, Jasmine, stop this before it's too late. You'll cripple the company." "You mean your company," I said. "Our company," he insisted. "You're part of this family." Family. I let the word linger, almost testing its taste. When Victor told me to stop embarrassing myself. When you told me I'd never make more in a lifetime than the warehouse payroll. When you pretended I didn't exist at shareholder dinners. Dad's eyes shone, the stern CEO stripped away. "You were always my daughter," he whispered. "I was hard on you because I wanted to protect you." "No," I said softly. "You were hard on me because you didn't believe in me." He blinked as if the truth itself was foreign. Robert, the chairman, came rushing out of the boardroom, his face pale. "Jasmine, Miss Morrison, please reconsider. The board will formally vote to appoint you vice chair. You'll have full authority. We'll issue a public apology and a media statement recognizing your role as a primary investor." I looked at him for a long time. He was sweating desperate, already calculating damage control. "So let me understand," I said. "You're offering me power and apology now, because my money's leaving." "No," he said quickly. "Because you've proven your value." "No," I corrected gently, "because I proved my leverage." For a fleeting moment, I almost gave in. Some part of me, the child who once waited outside Dad's office with a drawing of a new logo, still wanted him to say the words that mattered. "I'm proud of you." But he didn't. He only said what every CEO says when the numbers turn red. "We can rebuild this together," he said. "You're brilliant, Jasmine. You always were. Let's start over." Something broke in me at that moment. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. "You don't get to start over," I said quietly. "You had 8 years." Danielle's voice came through again, calm as ever. "Ms. Morrison, all accounts processed. Final confirmation in 30 seconds. I exhaled the sound, almost a whisper. "It's done then." Dad reached out, hand trembling, the same hand that used to guide mine when I was little. "Jasmine, I know I failed you, but you're still my daughter. Please don't walk away from us like this." For the first time all day, I felt tears sting my eyes. "I'm not walking away from family," I said. "I'm walking away from people who never acted like one." The final alert lit up my screen. "Transaction complete, Morrison Industries. 23.7 M liquidated. Transfer confirmed." The number pulsed like a heartbeat. Victor swore under his breath. Marina sobbed openly. Dad looked 20 years older. "You don't have to destroy everything to prove a point," Victor said bitterly. "I didn't destroy it," I replied. "You did every time you looked down on someone you should have lifted." He flinched but didn't answer. I turned toward the elevator. The mirrored doors reflected their faces, broken, small, humbled, and mine calm, unshaken, finally free. Dad took one last step. "If you ever change your mind, you'll be the first to know," I said softly. Right after the press release. The elevator chimed open. I stepped inside. As the doors began to close, I caught one last glimpse of them. Standing in that hallway, the family that once treated me like furniture in their empire, now watching their empire crumble around them. "Goodbye, Dad," I whispered. "You wanted a realistic daughter. Here she is." The doors slid shut, and for the first time in my life, I felt no need to look back. The elevator doors opened to the ground floor with a soft chime. The sound felt final, like the closing of a chapter that had taken me 29 years to finish writing. Outside sunlight poured through the glass lobby, painting long streaks of gold across the marble. The world was still turning. Employees passed me without knowing the earthquake that had just shaken the company upstairs. Some nodded politely. Warehouse staff, interns, receptionists, people who, like me, were invisible until the moment they were needed. For the first time, I looked at them and didn't feel small. I felt seen. My phone buzzed. Danielle Chin, calm as always. Jasmine, she said, full liquidation confirmed. The $23.7 million is now available in your Sterling operating account. Thank you, I replied. You've also received inquiries from 3 manufacturing firms who caught wind of your exit. All of them are eager to discuss investment. Let's schedule meetings with all 3, I said. Focus on companies that promote talent from within, ones that don't care where someone started. Understood. There was a pause, and then her voice softened. How do you feel? I looked up at the towering logo above the entrance. Morrison Industries, my family's pride, my lifelong prison. Free, I said, and a little sad. Danielle didn't reply right away. Sadness means it mattered, she said finally. But freedom means it's over. The line went quiet. Outside, the late afternoon breeze tugged at my blazer as I stepped onto the pavement. Each step away from the building felt lighter, but not easier. Because walking away from something that defined you, no matter how cruelly, always hurts. I passed the same delivery trucks I used to help unload, the same workers who never looked down on me because they didn't have to. Eliza, the girl from the warehouse, spotted me near the gate. Hey, Jasmine, you heading home early? I smiled. Something like that. You okay? You look different. I hesitated, then said quietly, I think I finally figured out who I am. She grinned. Good for you. Her words were simple, but they landed deeper than any apology I'd heard upstairs. My car was parked across the street. I opened the door and sat for a moment before turning the key. Silence again. The kind of silence that used to terrify me. Now it felt like peace. I pulled out my laptop one last time and opened an email draft to Danielle, to dchin@sterlingcapital.com. Subject: New allocation strategy. Body: find me. Companies run by people who started on factory floors in warehouses behind counters. People who were told they weren't enough and proved everyone wrong. I'm done investing in names that forget the hands that built them. I hit send. As I drove away, the Morrison Tower shrank in the rearview mirror, steel glass and pride glinting in the sun. I didn't hate it. I just didn't belong to it anymore. For 8 years, I'd been its ghost. For 8 years, I'd whispered from the corners, held the walls, up from below, built empires in the dark. And when I finally stood in the light, they still couldn't see me, not until I made the sky fall. Now, I didn't need their vision. I had my own. My phone buzzed again. Emails, meeting requests, congratulations from founders of startups I'd quietly funded years ago. None of them asked about my family. None of them needed to see my bank balance to know I was worth listening to. They'd already seen me for what I truly was capable. As the city skyline unfolded ahead, I felt tears slip down my cheeks, not from regret, but release. The invisible daughter was gone. In her place stood a woman who had learned that being unseen isn't the same as being unworthy, and that sometimes the only way to be recognized is to walk away. I took one last glance in the mirror. The Morrison building nothing more than a silhouette against the setting sun. For the first time, I whispered someone finally saw me, and it was me.